Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we are going to learn English through a real-life story. We'll discuss Steve Jobs and an important idea. Life is short, so how should we spend it? Now, let's get started. Imagine this. One day, you go to the hospital. The doctor looks at you and says, "You may not have much time left." What would you do next? Would you continue your daily routine? Would you still do the same job? Or would you change your life completely? This situation may sound extreme, but for Steve Jobs, this was real. Steve Jobs was the co-founder of Apple. He helped create the iPhone, the Mac, and many products we use today. But at one point in his life, he faced a serious illness. And this experience changed the way he thought about life. The life of Steve Jobs. Now, let's take a quick look at Steve Jobs' life. Steve Jobs was born in 1955 in the United States. When he was young, he was curious and liked to explore new ideas. In 1976, he started a company called Apple with his friend Steve Wozniak, and they worked in a small garage. At that time, computers were big and complicated, but Steve Jobs wanted to make them simple and beautiful. Apple grew very fast, and soon Steve Jobs became very successful. Before the age of 30, he was already a millionaire. But then, something unexpected happened. At 30 years old, Steve Jobs was fired from his own company. Imagine that. The company he started, the company he loved, asked him to leave. After that, he started again. He created new companies and continued to build new ideas. Years later, Apple was not doing well, so the company asked him to come back. This time, he changed everything. He helped create new products like the iMac, the iPod, and later the iPhone. And Apple became one of the most successful companies in the world. But later in his life, he faced another big challenge. He became seriously ill, and this made him think deeply about one question. How should we spend our time if life is short? Connecting the dots. Now, let's look at one important idea from Steve Jobs. He believed that in life, many things do not make sense at the beginning. Let's look at a simple story. When Steve Jobs was young, he went to college, but after a short time, he decided to leave. However, he did not stop learning. He stayed on campus and joined classes that interested him. One of these classes was calligraphy. Calligraphy is the art of beautiful writing. In this class, he learned about different styles of letters, spacing, and design. At that time, this knowledge seemed useless. It did not help him find a job, and it did not help him make money. So why did he learn it? Because he was curious. Now, here is the interesting part. Years later, when he was building the Mac computer, he remembered what he learned. Because of that class, the Mac had beautiful fonts and design. It was very different from other computers. So something that looked unimportant in the past became very important later. This idea is called connecting the dots. It means we cannot understand everything right now, but when we look back, we can see how different experiences are connected. Follow your curiosity. So, what can we learn from this story? The first lesson is simple. Follow your curiosity. Steve Jobs did not choose the safe path. He did not only study things that could help him get a job. Instead, he followed what interested him. At that time, it did not look practical, and it did not look useful. But later it became something very valuable. This is how life often works. Many people are afraid to try new things. They only choose what is safe. They only do what others expect. But if you always choose the safe path, you may miss something important. You may miss new ideas, you may miss new opportunities, and you may even miss what you truly enjoy. So here is a simple sentence you can remember. Follow your curiosity. Curiosity means you want to learn something new. You want to explore, and you want to try. You don't need to have a perfect plan. Sometimes you just need to start. Because one small interest today can become something important in the future. So don't ignore your curiosity. It might be leading you somewhere meaningful. Don't be afraid of failure. Now, let's talk about another important lesson. Don't be afraid of failure. As we learned earlier, Steve Jobs was fired from Apple at the age of 30. This was not a small failure. This was his own company. Imagine building something for years and then suddenly losing it. He felt confused and he felt lost, but he did not give up. Instead, he started again. He created a new company called Next. He also helped build another company called Pixar, which later became very successful in animation. Step by step, he continued to move forward. And then something surprising happened. Apple needed help, so they invited him back. The man who was once fired returned to lead the company again, and this time he created even greater success. So what does this teach us? Failure is not the end. Sometimes failure is the beginning of something new. Many people are afraid to fail. They think failure means they are not good enough, so they stop trying, they avoid risks, and they stay in their comfort zone. But if Steve Jobs had stopped after his failure, there would be no iPhone, no iPod, and no Apple as we know it today. Here is a sentence you can remember. Even if you fail, you can still start again. Failure is not a dead end. It is a turning point. So don't waste your time being afraid of failure. Sometimes failure is exactly what you need to move forward. Remember, life is short. Now, we come to the most important lesson. Life is short. When Steve Jobs was in his late 40s, he was told that he had a serious illness. For some time, he believed he might not live much longer. This was a turning point in his life. After this experience, he began to think about his time in a very different way. He asked himself a simple question every day. If today were the last day of my life, would I still do what I am about to do? In simple words, this means, am I living the life I truly want? This question helped him focus. It helped him stop wasting time on things that were not important. Because when you remember that life is short, many things become clear. Small problems feel smaller, other people's opinions feel less important, and fear becomes weaker. And one idea becomes stronger. Time is limited, so we should use it carefully. How to spend your life wisely. Now we understand the idea. Life is short, but the real question is, what should we do about it? Here are 3 simple ways to spend your life more wisely. First, do something meaningful. Don't just work for money, and don't just follow what others expect. Try to do something that is important to you, something you care about. For example, you can say, I want to do work that helps people, or I want to create something meaningful. Second, spend time with the right people. Life is not only about work, it is also about relationships. Family, friends, and people who support you matter. So ask yourself, who do I really want to spend time with? And then make time for them. For example, I choose to spend more time with my family. or I want to be with people who understand me. Third, stop wasting time on things that don't matter. Many people spend too much time worrying about what others think, about small problems, and about things they cannot control. But if life is short, do these things really matter? You don't need to change everything in one day. Just start small and make better choices one step at a time. Because in the end, your life is made of how you spend your time. So choose carefully. Final reflection. Now, let's review what we learned today. We learned a simple idea. Life is short. We learned from Steve Jobs that life does not always go as planned. Sometimes things don't make sense, sometimes we fail, and sometimes we face difficult moments. But even so, we can choose how we live. We can follow our curiosity. We can learn from failure. We can focus on what truly matters. So before we end, I want to ask you one question. If today were the last day of your life, would you still do what you are about to do? Take a moment and think about it. If your answer is no, maybe it is time to make a change. Even a small change is a good start because your time is limited. So don't waste it. Spend it on what is meaningful. Spend it with people who matter. Spend it on a life you truly want. If you enjoyed this lesson, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And in the comments, tell me, how do you want to spend your life? I'll see you in the next lesson.